I'm calling on realtors to follow through on lowering their commissions to protect home buyers.
Well, that's just crazy. Oh, God. This is what the White House press secretary said.
Treat Americans like suckers. He has said that over and over again.
In the National Association of Realtors case, it effectively ends the 6% commission on house sales. You know, Biden administration made a lot about fees and costs and consumer costs. Has the White House been tracking this case, and any reaction to the settlement?
So I can't speak to the settlement. Obviously, you're talking about junk fees and how important it is that we...
Yeah, I'm not calling this junk fee. I'm just saying that you guys have been focused on consumer fees, consumer costs. This is kind of in line with those things. We're seeing that effectively the 6% commission is going away.
Speak more broadly to what the president has tried to do, right? He's trying to make sure that consumers don't get taken advantage of by corporations. He's made that very, very clear. That's why we speak to junk fees. That's why there's a competition council. And that's why we try to find out ways to save Americans money. You know, we're talking about billions of dollars that Americans.
It's no wonder 43,000 National Association of Realtor members have left since December. The administration is not helping our industry. Oh my gosh. Some people have said, zip it. I'm talking to real estate agents right now. Professionals that have a license, that are in this business to help people. Put things back into perspective with all this crazy bashing going on with consumers and the press over this silly NAR settlement. It's time for a reality check. Why am I better than anyone else to share these thoughts, you might ask? Well, because I've been through this already. Because of being on the mortgage end and the time that I've been in the industry and the whole 2008 meltdown. Because I have a very unique perspective on this whole thing that's happening with us than most people, unless you've actually experienced the mortgage side of that meltdown. Because when this happened in 2008 in the industry, I had a front row seat, literally a front row seat. I'm having a bit of deja vu with this whole commission conversation. Because back in 2008, I was a compliance officer with a mortgage banker. What does that mean? Well, I was in charge in making sure that everybody obeyed the compliance aspects that had just been completely turned on its ear. Literally. I mean, they changed forms, they changed processes. The RESPA was just, thrown into a bucket, shaken up and came out in a different way. But I watched from the front row the legislation of Dodd-Frank. The mortgage industry was taking a beating during those years because, once again, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. This mentality is fear-based. And honestly, if you know how to pivot, this means nothing to you. And what's interesting is that Facebook was only 4 years old at that point and not near as nasty as it is today. Believe me, it was that nice place where you connected with your family and your friends. But I'm sure the same bashing would have been going on with the mortgage professionals as is happening with real estate agents today. I could say I'm surprised at the panic and over these overreaching claims that are being made even by individuals in our own industry. Oh my gosh, they're everywhere, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. I have a client who asked me about a month ago, what do I think about this decision, this settlement, this judgment? He told me he had watched some TikTok videos, which everyone should get their news from Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, right? But that these realtors had said that the 6% is dead, according to him on TikTok. Oh man. These consumers and keyboard warriors bashing realtors with comments like, my buyer's agent didn't do anything but open the front door. boo-hoo, you realtors complaining about not making enough money when you don't do anything. Seriously? I don't know about you, but that's not me. And they get worse. I don't read them. People share them with me, and I say, please don't. But I've been told by these amazing clients of mine that they are out there, and they want to share them with me. Thank you. No, thank you. But after someone sent me this video of the White House and the White House press secretary, I was a little fired up. Because this is the administration. They should not be saying things like that to fuel the fire. And I love, love, love that the President of the United States is telling the American public that realtors should reduce their commissions so that home prices can go down. Honestly, I had an amazing mentor decades ago, because I've been doing this like, it feels like 100 years. But they said the most brilliant thing. The market is always right, until somebody starts getting in there and messing it up. But the market is always right. And what the heck does that even mean? I say that to every client I have ever had, mortgage or real estate, because the market is you and me and everyone who buys and sells anything. The market is always right. And whether it's donuts or real estate or life coaches or attorneys or Beanie Babies, the market is always right. The market is driven by supply and demand. That's it. You get an oversupply and an underdemand, an undersupply, an overdemand. The prices go up, the prices go down. It's really easy. It is, you do not have to have an economic degree, which I do not, but I know how it works. It's simple. And I don't even know how economic people make it so complicated. It is simply supply and demand. And what have we had in the past couple of years? A lack of inventory. Oh, supply is down. So what did the Fed do? They got in there, they started churning it around to slow it down. See, the thing is that I know there's a thing called inflation, but it doesn't allow itself to work itself out while you're messing with the levers. But the thing is, the market is going to drive the prices of real estate. Always. The Fed through the bond market is going to drive the interest rates. They don't make the interest rates. They make the overnight Fed fund rate. And then the bond market trades to actually create the rates. That's it. Period. In a discussion. It is not the commissions on a real estate deal. Oh my goodness. And listen, the government can muck this up as much as they want to, absolutely. And do they? 100%. But when the White House press secretary lumps what our commissions are into a conversation about junk fees, oof, that gets me a little hot, because it's a little frightening and very demeaning that they would be anywhere near having input about this conversation. And frankly, you could tell she didn't even really know what she was talking about, because she said, I don't really know. So then don't comment. By the way, these junk fees are mostly related to overdraft protections. And if you think about this, it's a leading indicator, because I teach about marketing, and it's a leading indicator that the market is moving in a direction of financial stress. Why is it in a financial distress? Well, it isn't because of inflation, I can guarantee you, but that's another conversation. But given that so many citizens are in our country that are super in debt, that's a leading indicator that somewhere down the line, the foreclosure market is going to start to accelerate again. Because right now, everybody's got this equity in their property because of the unicorn years. But more about that on another video. This is what I want to talk about, is this NAR lawsuit though, because these sellers in Missouri filed a class action against the NAR. And the upshot is that the sellers can no longer share tell about any splits for the buyer's agents on the MLS. That's really the upshot of it. It isn't that the 6% is going away, because it isn't. It isn't. It does not say that they cannot share it, period. And why people, even in our industry, are making these crazy claims is beyond me. It's sensational. That's how you get eyeballs when you're looking at the internet. So, but I think this whole silliness of ding dong, the 6%, which is dead, is laughable. Because if you give that kind of service that it deserves that, then you charge that. That's it. An attorney will charge a $3,000 an hour fee if they're worth it. One that's not, $150 maybe. You have to decide that, but you also have to claim your own worth. What is even more laughable is the idea that price fixing and antitrust exist and that a court of law ruled that way. I'm beginning to lose a lot of faith in our judicial system. I will be honest with you. The things that I've seen recently, so much for my opinion. I was born and raised in California. I've done business there and in major cities in Texas and Colorado, and I can tell you, price fixing does not exist. It just doesn't. Because common and customary 6%, yes. Does it happen common and customarily in certain locations? Oh, yes, by the way, where I live, Wichita Falls. But it doesn't happen all over the place. It isn't something that's an antitrust issue. And I'm really kind of surprised that the NAR attorneys couldn't make their point. But I wasn't there, and I'm not going to relitigate this. But all you have to do is pull up real estate on any area and see sponsored ads by flat fee brokers, 1% listing fees. And the real estate commission has always been negotiable, always. But here's the thing is, I want to talk about being back in 2008 when loan officer comp, which is a lot similar to what's happening here, because supposedly it wasn't a class action. It was the government getting involved because they forgot to pay attention to the fact that Wall Street was the culprit here. But again, I digress. Loan officer comp was under a similar attack. And it seemed at one point that there would be a standard fee for them as well. Thank God that didn't happen. And even back then, which is, I love CNN because they've just been around. They were the first 24-hour news programs. But they've got to sell eyeballs. They got to get you to watch. So they say these crazy things that they said back then. Real estate prices would go up because banks were no longer buying brokered loans from mortgage brokers, and therefore interest rates would be less negotiable. This prediction about gloom and doom and the sky is falling, I can never listen to it, because if you are in any industry and things happen that make changes, you have to pivot. That's it. There's nothing else. And the good news is for real estate agents, realtors, our community, is that our fees are not tied to the interest rate like they are with the mortgage industry. Thank goodness. Because that's what loan officer comp is attached to. Our fees are tied to our value. Our value, which is the real point of this video. The funny thing is that these 43,000 NAR members left since December, which is only 2.3% of the overall membership. That's like a drop in the bucket. But the number, the headline number, 43,000, sounds like a lot. So put it in perspective. This is the thing, is you always have to put something in perspective when the news makes a big deal out of it. In 2011, there were 1 million NAR members. In 2022, right? Because after the unicorn years and everybody got in the business because they're like, oh, real estate, we can make a bunch of money. 1.58 million. Just in that short amount of time. And when did the majority of those come into the profession? You guessed it, between 2019 and 2022. Can you say unicorn years? Absolutely, that's what happened. Because when it's cyclical, when they see the gravy, they're in, and as soon as they have to start doing fundamentals, they're out. So are you somebody that's just in, or are you there for the long game? Because in 2019, there were 1.4 million NAR members and 1.58 in 2022. That's crazy. In that short period of time, in that little window, we added 180,000 members. 43,000, that's a drop in the bucket that are leaving because they can't cut it. That's okay. I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. So we have a ways to go before we get to pre-pandemic numbers, because that's what all industries now are looking at. Where are we pre-pandemic? I take travel, for instance, because now I travel and every time I go to an airport, it's like, oh my God, there's so many people. We have surpassed pre-pandemic levels because everyone measures it by that. If you measure it according to pandemic levels, you're never going to get an accurate number. So just like every other statistic since the pandemic, you want to look at pre-pandemic numbers before making any kind of logical conclusion. I have been teaching marketing to businesses for decades, and being a realtor is no different than running any other business. It just isn't. You have to have fundamentals. And when the pandemic caused restaurants to stop having in-person dining, or any other business that was struck by it having to pivot and do something else, what do? They pivot. And if you don't pivot, then you will be left behind. And we can all pivot. So let's take a walk down memory lane for just a moment. If you've been around for a while, you remember the years when Paul Volcker was the Fed chair. Now, I'm telling you, you need to be around for a while because I told you I'm old. But he was the Fed chair, and interest rates back in the day were 18 and 19%. People complain about 7. I crack up. Because the average interest rate over time is 6, which is fantastic. But that's in the 80s. And they said that would kill the real estate industry. Didn't happen, right? In 1996, when the MLS went digital, the industry went crazy. Oh my gosh, we're going to freak out. What's going to happen? We can't deal with the technology. And then in 2006, oh my gosh, Zillow came on the scene. Oh my goodness. We are doomed. We're doomed. Zillow's going to ruin the real estate industry. Didn't happen. Now, 2008 comes along. The crash. Everybody said, I'll never buy real estate again. We taught all those millennials, don't buy real estate. Was that the end of it? No, they're all in the market. That's why we had such a problem during the pandemic. They said no one would buy a house ever again, right? Even a few years ago, when Zillow decided that they would become brokers and start buying houses for cash, and Open Door came along, and all of these cash buyers, oh my gosh, the real estate industry is going to be closed down. Didn't happen. But the thing is why didn't it happen? Because we're needed. We are needed because we help navigate very complicated processes. So even when flat fee listing companies, which I also do, by the way, but they came on the scene, it had not made a dent in our industry. Why? Because the consumer needs us. They need someone to help them, to hold their hand, to navigate these transitions. And the thing is that it's not for the faint of heart, I can assure you. Could they do it alone? Probably. Not very well, but they could. Just because LegalZoom has an option for people to do their own wills online, do you think that estate lawyers have gone out of business? No. They've probably increased since LegalZoom may have dropped the ball for people doing things online with their wills and their trusts. But the fact of the matter is that you play a valuable role in this whole business called real estate. And what is true is that we will have to explain our value going forward. And particularly being a buyer's agent has been a little easy up until now. You got to say that. And trust me, I don't mean easy in the sense that we don't work. I work way harder as a buyer's agent than I think as a seller's agent. Sometimes it's, it's not one way or the other, absolutely. There is such a loyal fan base that I have. But the thing is that I would do it regardless because I wanted them to know my value. And given that the seller has been paying for it all this time, it was really sort of a easier process to say, here's a buyer's agreement and don't worry about it. The seller's probably going to pay for your fees, but that's not happening anymore. One of the greatest things that I have ever done from a marketing perspective, because when you are marketing yourself, I don't care if you're selling shoes or you're selling bagels or you're selling real estate, is you have to have your potential clients know, like, and trust you. And how do you do that? Not through a Zillow phone call, but I've created a social media presence, particularly through video. You're watching a YouTube channel where my clients get to know, like, and trust me, so that conversation is not challenging because they're already saying yes. But if I were still paying for Zillow leads, I feel like it would add another layer of difficulty creating that trust with a potential buyer, especially given all the firestorm that's going on out there right now. So here's my prediction on how this will shake out. Consumers may or may not be aware of the ruling. I mean, that just is. But with all of the crazy coverage out there, it's highly likely that they will. But regardless, since you will now be required to have a buyer sign a buyer's agreement, a buyer's representation before showing them property, and that agreement states that they will be responsible for your fee, having the most incredible buyer's presentation on cold leads is going to be essential. Because up until now, basically, we did just take a lead and open the door in a lot of instances. I know that I don't do it that way, but I know that there are people in our industry that do it that way. And don't be offended when I say that, because I'm obviously not speaking to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have watched this video this long. You really care about your industry. And of course, that's not the case with you. I'm telling you, I know it's not. But it's easier to show a buyer a property without having a real conversation with them that they might have to pay for your commission, right? Up until now, it's been pretty easy peasy. It's going to change, and it's going to change because you have to know your value and worth. That's really the bottom line. And this new era, as it unfolds, you will have to be and have to have an incredible buyer's representative and have a presentation that supports that so that you can explain why your value is your value and the things that you will do for this buyer, all the things that can go wrong, and how you plan to overcome those things should they happen. Let them know that you're going to have a plan in place ahead of time so that they don't get the loan denied 3 days before closing. Now you can help them overcome those barriers. It's more than you just helping them buy a house. They need to know you are worth every penny that you're going to charge. And the seller is not going to cover that fee 100%. And they have to pay it that you're worth every penny. I think you can see that explaining this to someone who calls you off of a Zillow lead may be challenging in the best circumstances. Because if you learn to put yourself out there to build trust with your potential clients before you ever have a conversation through these various channels, you will have a much easier time of it, believe me. And so one of the things, because I've been teaching marketing for all kinds of businesses, I happened to get into real estate after I had cancer again. It was easy for me because I've done it so many years. But I'm teaching Business Marketing 101 again. And if you really want to learn some of these fundamentals, I'm going to be sharing a live seminar in the next week. So be sure to check out the show notes here so that you can sign up for that. But if your ideal client is already watching you and following you on a social media channel, because video is king these days, they already know your value. They already want to say yes. So why do you want to not understand how to do that better? How do you explain to someone you've never met in a cold experience, a cold call, that you're going to hold their hand through the whole transaction and move heaven and earth for them to get them their dream home? They don't want to be sold. They want to buy a house, but they want to trust and like you and know you. It's relational what we do. And I did have an occasion to have that conversation a few years ago when a customer came through a Zillow lead. I used to buy Zillow leads. She was calling about a FSBO on Zillow, which, you know, we all love those. And her first words out to me were, "Realtors are vultures." I was taken aback. Wow, what a way to start a conversation. But by the end of the conversation, I had talked her off the vulture ledge because I had a YouTube channel that I could refer her to and show her who I truly am. And she subsequently became an amazing client and afterwards a friend, because that's how I roll. But this is what this industry is about. It's about being heart-centered, heartfelt, and leading from your authenticity if you truly want to be successful. So when you do that, you can never, ever, ever go wrong. And I actually hope that this educates consumers to not just take the first realtor they speak to on the phone from Zillow and interview a buyer's agent as thoroughly as a seller's agent, so that you become the best agent that you can be, because you invest in yourself, you learn more about this industry, and you make a commitment to educate your clients as well as yourself. And if you are freaking out right now thinking real estate was the worst decision of my life, learning is your best friend. Hiring a coach is your best action. And when you are better prepared than your counterparts, just because you don't have a ton of experience, you shine. And when you can answer every question and explain every guideline and every rule to your clients, that they understand what you're saying, and you build that sense of confidence for them, they trust you. You understand the state that you live in. And being from California and doing business in Colorado and Texas, Texas is another animal. And yet, it's easy to learn, because knowing why we do things the way we do here, what a homestead law really means, before what home equity, before we even had that, I was explaining that because I understood the history of how things happened in the state of Texas, and explaining those things to my clients. They know what I'm talking about. They know I know what I'm talking about. When you sound professional and you are also approachable, it's a winning combination. And as I said earlier, it will be interesting to see who makes the cut. Sadly, I do see agents all the time who do minimal work to receive the compensation that other agents put in so much more time. So my question to you is, which one are you? What you want is a buyer who is so excited to hire you that, to make an old cliche, they think you are the bee's knees. And as for this idea that the sky is falling, just like everything else in this industry, it's cyclical. That brings me to the idea of value. You must know your worth and value. Do you truly know your value? Are you confident in the services that you provide? When you prepare a buyer's presentation, which is going to be mandatory at this point, it's as important as a seller's presentation. Do you know what you do for a buyer besides open the door for them? Can you put that in a presentation that they understand? That your commission is reasonable for that service. I have a very large group in North Texas, and yesterday there was a member who posted a recommendation for somebody who painted their house number on the curb. It was just a simple little post. They were just bragging on this person. And of course, keyboard warriors out there, it caught my attention. The comment was it reasonable? Great question to ask yourself. Because every person on the planet would have a different answer to reasonable for a curb painting, for an attorney, or your services as a realtor. Every business on the planet must market themselves, which is exactly what every realtor will be asked to do going forward as a buyer's agent, and always has been for a seller's agent. This is not sales, this is marketing. And understanding your ideal client is more important than ever. In all the years that I've taught marketing and branding, the first action for any business, which is what you are, by the way, is to curate your ideal client. And for those of you who just had a thought that everyone is my client, therein lies a greater issue. Because if you don't have an ideal client and a unique point of view, a unique selling proposition, or know what makes you different than all the rest of the sea of realtors out there, all 1.58 million of them, that's where I would recommend that you begin. Because once you know your ideal client, where does he or she hang out? Marketing is not about getting Zillow leads. It is putting yourself in the path of your ideal client, and that they know that you are the best choice for them. So how do you do that? Educating buyers is an essential ingredient of what we do. Investing in yourself is so critical, and most real estate professionals never get the training they genuinely need, not only in marketing, but mindset, abundance, creation, and oh yes, the dreaded sales conversation. So I ask you, do you want to be the cream of the crop and float to the top, or just try to get by and hope this works? There are actions you can take, not the least of which is educating yourself on this settlement, not from the perspective of social media or mainstream media and listening to all the crazy conversation. You can read exactly what the guidance will be from NAR, from the NAR. And as I mentioned, when the Dodd-Frank legislation came down, it was so convoluted, and yet I read every word of it so that I could be prepared to comply as a compliance officer, and also not to fall victim to the crazy chickens running around yelling, "The sky is falling!" So the truth is that millions are not leaving our industry. Real estate is flourishing and will be crazy again when these interest rates come down. Yes, there will be some agents who find other ways to make a living. 43,000 have already done that, but it certainly won't be millions. Real estate is not dead. It's too complicated of a process for the average consumer to deal with. So the pundits in the press and the media, are they correct? Will interest rates go down? Prices go down? No, that's not going to happen. If you were to ask me a while back, when bread got to $1 a loaf and it used to be 25 cents a loaf, do you think that will come down back to 25 cents? Of course not. Once things go up, they rarely come back down. Unless we have, a global economic challenge, or COVID, or Wall Street imploding, those kind of things. But as an expert in your field, will you continue to educate consumers and explain to them how this all works? Or will you want to just see how it goes? These ridiculous claims from people who clearly don't know what they're talking about and how the market works. Keep that in mind. The market is always right. It's time to get ahead of the pack and start to explain what is happening to your clients through all the vehicles that you have available to yourself. Why would someone want to hire a professional realtor for all their real estate needs? Do you have an answer? That's the question I leave you with today. I'm not going to lose any sleep over the 43,000 agents who have already left the NAR because they were just in it to make a buck. They're not doing anything for their clients and truly not having their whole heart in this. That's the thing that I believe will be the saving grace for those of you that really truly do this to be of service. I've been in this industry for 30 years, and there are highs and there are lows. And if you are one of those few who chose to play the long game, you learned to pivot, to reinvent yourself, and be open to new ideas and opportunities. This is just a new opportunity. As I said, I was born and raised in Southern California, and we measure directions in time, not miles, because of traffic, which there isn't in Wichita Falls. I love that part. But if you're going someplace, you ask, how long will it take to get there? It may only be 26 miles, but if you travel at one time of the day, it's going to take you 3 hours. And if you travel at another time, it's going to take you an hour. The bottom line is you're going to end up there no matter how long it takes. So if you're in this for the long game, you're going to be a success no matter how long it takes if you stick to the fundamentals and you learn about marketing, which is what I really, really want you to do in the next week when I have my seminar. If you're in it for this long game, trust me, you will win. And if you're in it as a career and an opportunity, don't freak out. Trust me, I've seen it all. If you know your value, your skills, your niche, and you share that clearly and succinctly, you're going to thrive. And will there be collateral damage? For sure. Will there be unintended consequences? Oh yeah. Some of those unintended consequences might be fabulous, honestly. Changes, they are a-comin', and the question is, are you ready to swing for the fences to create your dreams? I love this profession, and I want all realtors out there who love it as well and use it as a springboard to create their dreams, to find solace in knowing that good things are on the way. I promise you. If you want more information about the upcoming seminar, my contact information is in the show notes. See you on the flip side. And as a personal note, I'm not going to lose any sleep over